However, the very fact that we have the ability to focus our consciousness in this environment has already started and kicked off the creative process immediately. So once we understand that from day one, we're completely responsible for everything that's happening in these life experiences in our lives, interconnectivity, the whole 9 yards, it becomes important to start directing our thoughts. And that's, if someone wants to be a deliberate, intentional creator in their life, that's why the law of attraction is vital information. In a future podcast, I will be getting into techniques that we can use similar to the type of techniques Braden talked about in his book concerning these experiments, but techniques that we can use on a daily basis in our lives to start bringing manifestations into our life experience. Deliberately, I should say, bring these manifestations into our experience instead of accidentally creating without our awareness being involved in it. For the remainder of this episode, I would like to speak on how I have been able to use the law of attraction ever since learning about it. I have essentially used the law of attraction to learn more about the law of attraction. After the Seth material, I came across a book that I talk about quite frequently on my blog, one of my favorites as well. It's called The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. In that book, Talbot discusses this information as well. While he's not necessarily predominantly speaking on the law of attraction and the deliberate creation of our reality, the information that he goes through from scientific to mystical in his book points in this direction throughout the entire book. After the Holographic Universe, I spent some more time on Seth material. I went into some other areas with that. And then I came across The Secret about a year ago. And the information within The Secret is what really started piecing it together more for me. From The Secret, I went on to learn more about Abraham Hicks. Abraham is another aspect of non-physical consciousness that's brought forth through Esther Hicks, similar to how Seth was brought through Jane Roberts. And I have written a blog post on Abraham as well. And I highly recommend the Abraham material. You can reach Jerry and Esther Hicks at their website, which is www.abraham-hicks.com. Now, a couple of years ago, in the midst of the Seth material and prior to watching The Secret, I also did come across What the Bleep Do We Know? Another excellent film that points to this information. While they're not speaking primarily about the law of attraction, they are speaking about the quantum field and quantum physics, quantum mechanics, based upon how mind enters into what we're seeing, what we're experiencing. Without mind, the universe would cease to be. The universe is only here because of our mindful, conscious awareness. For me personally, I like to hear validating stories from people. While the science is great, the mystical information is great, I also love to hear stories that validate people being able to take any experience in their life and change it through their thoughts, primarily through their thoughts, and of course their action that follows up due to that thought process and that shift in the emotional focus in their lives. So because of that, I thought that I might speak a little bit about some experiences that I've had in case my listeners would be interested in some more validating information as well. I pretty much credit the entire creation of both of my websites to the utilization of the law of attraction or deliberate creation. Windofthesoul, of course, .com. And then I also, for those that may not be familiar, I also run a Halloween/supernatural website, and that's seasonofshadows.com. And that was where I began my foray into the internet, you could say. And then from there, a lot of fantastic experiences occurred. I started expanding, growing more, and that was when I developed Wind of the Soul after that. The reason that I say that I credit the law of attraction with the deliberate use of the law of attraction with allowing me to build and create both of my websites is because I had been for a number of years putting out the intentions, even before learning about The Secret and learning about the Seth material. I had just kind of been daydreaming and thinking about wanting to get involved in something that was a passion of mine and in a way that could be beneficial to others. And then I also knew that I wanted to get out onto the internet in some way, shape, or form to be able to encompass the things that I love and the ability to serve others. I've had a love affair with the supernatural, Halloween, spiritual development, self-help, all of that information for years. And because of that, I have been putting the intentions out there. I want to be able to do those things and also do them in a way that allows me to build a business. I make no bones about it. What I'm doing for both sites, they absolutely have a business side to them. However, my primary drive and focus is in serving other people, and in seasonofshadows.com, serving and entertaining, keeping all the information free. so that everything will always be free to my visitors. I don't believe they should have to pay for any of the information that I have on the sites, because I primarily believe the majority of what I speak about, what I write about, is available. It's knowledge that's inside of us already. It just kind of has to be worked with to become activated. Once it becomes activated, then everybody has access to this information. So rather than charge for what I talk about or write about, I prefer to put passive income streams, things like advertising programs, and also donations on my site as well for people that are interested in donating. And to those individuals that have contributed donations, I am so extremely thankful and I appreciate it. And it tells me that I am providing value. So thank you once again so much. Before starting the creation of seasonofshadows.com, which, as I was saying, it was my initial trek into the internet, I had no clue about web design. I had played around a little bit with HTML, that type of stuff, but I had no clue about what it would entail to bring in blogging software and what it would entail to utilize other technologies and codes and style sheets and things like that to be able to get a site off the ground that was going to have all of the types of things that I wanted to be able to offer. I had no knowledge of how to do that. So I trusted in the process. I began meditating upon it even more. I outlined everything that I wanted to bring about in my first website. I set the intentions out there to the universe that the people, the books, the knowledge, anything that I needed was going to find its way to me. And sure enough, yes, of course, action was involved. But sure enough, once I lined up with those thoughts and began taking the action, it flowed very smoothly, very synchronistically. And I started having things fall into place in a manner that, quite honestly, I had not quite experienced in my life before. And the synchronicities really don't stop there, because there were more involving the development of Wind of the Soul. The direction of my blogging at Season of Shadows had consistently started taking me in the direction of primarily talking about self-help and spiritually empowering information. And because of that, I had been toying with the idea around January, February of 2008, earlier this year, with splitting up the site. And it just didn't feel right. The time didn't feel right. What was going to be going into it didn't feel like it was right at that moment. So I let a few months go by, and then I started setting forth the intention. What do I need to do? When do I need to do it to make this site stronger and also be able to carry on with the purpose of what I feel is my life purpose and why I feel I'm doing what I'm doing? Within about 2 days of setting forth that emotionally charged intention, I ended up speaking with someone that I now consider a very good friend of mine. She gave me feedback based upon friends of hers who were interested in spiritual information that had been coming to my site. On the very same day, I also got the impulse, just a real strong impulse, to contact a graphic artist that I have become acquainted with, and he was giving me feedback based upon the Halloween aspect of my site and what could make that stronger at Season of Shadows. So between the two of them, along with some other feedback that was coming in, I realized there's my sign. Now is the time to go ahead and hone the focus at Season of Shadows and split off the spiritual and self-help information into another website in and of itself. And therein was born Wind of the Soul. So I totally, absolutely credit the law of attraction with bringing about Wind of the Soul as well. So ever since the inception of my site, I have continued to have things fall into place perfectly for me. I consistently try to. I don't always. Sometimes I get busy, but I try to work in meditation. If I don't get to meditate every single day, focusing my intentions on what I want in my life, really feeling strong emotion during my meditation, then I definitely work with the aspects of appreciation. I feel strong emotion appreciating what I've brought into my life. And I will bring all of these into a coherent, hopefully this podcast has been coherent, but in my next podcast or in a couple podcasts from now, I'll set up guidelines that are coherent in how to apply all of this information to start making intentional changes in your life process, in your life experience. Now, while I'm speaking about ways in which I have experienced the deliberate creation of my reality and the law of attraction, I would be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of experiences that have just happened to me within the last 3 weeks. And I just wrote about this in my blog post, Items Materializing from Thin Air. While I can see that the majority of the manifestations, the creations in my life experience have come forth through what I call a building of momentum of thought In other words, once we build and build and build enough emotionally driven thought, through the momentous building of that, doors begin to open. The universe begins to swing doors open for us that are not always obvious.